opening up like hearts and claps, like hand claps, smileys, and you can do a high five, and you can do a crazy smiley or a sad smiley. So please all do hearts. So I know you understand me. Yeah, show your love. Yeah, I think exactly. There's how much love was there? One.
Quite a lot. We need more love from the robot at the back.
Yeah, maybe. Is this Tony? Tony, are you a bot or are you a person in this? He's very quiet. And
my friend Cordula's in the audience. Hi, Cordula.
Good. Oh, yeah. Good. Okay. Nice. Okay, let's try some other things. Can we do a high five? Can people do that? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Very good. Yes. There's some more people coming in. Yeah, Steve. Hello, welcome. Duchess. Yeah, good. Okay, we can do also, to kill the time, to do a selfie with the audience.
Oh, yeah, awesome.
Like a beginning. Yeah. So let's get
today how to get the selfies out of Alt Space. I haven't figured it out.
Oh yeah, I can help you. So if we could turn to the like this, and I get the selfie out. So if you come next to me, stand next to me. And then the people behind us, come please all behind us so we can see you.
Make sure your personal space bubbles are off.
Okay. Let me see. Yes, very good. Some more people into the crowd. Yes. Yes, very good. And Camilla, you a little me. It seems for you maybe already that you're very close, but you need to be a little bit more closer.
Okay, now I'm on top of you.
I don't see you. You're in me. You're like in me right now.
It's embodiment,
Yeah, of course. That's the whole story. Yeah, I don't see you at all. So can you get out again? Oh, yeah. There. Yeah. Yeah. A little bit closer now. Yeah, almost there. More. Yeah, almost. Yeah, look at me. Look at the screen.
Oh, yeah, I don't know where your camera is, so.
But you have to. Yeah, I don't see you. Where are you? I come stand next to you, yeah?
Yeah, I've been
Let me see where you are.
Yeah, in the pictures we are right beside each other, so it's good.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good. So you made it. Yeah. You made a picture. Good. Then we have the pictures.
A few pictures. Yeah.
Great. So we have another 4 minutes. Nice that you all are here, people. We wait another 4 minutes to start the presentation. So let me show your act, Camille. Show me some actor skills.
Actor skills. Well, actually, I was wondering how many people who are presenting in Alt Space at this conference did like a 20-minute vocal warm-up, because I did. But that's what I'm used to doing when I used to be an actor. And it's so long since I've had to do it. So my favorite way to warm up my voice is to sing Sinead O'Connor. Hopefully you know Sinead O'Connor from Ireland, at the top of my lungs. And I think all the apartment blockers probably heard me.
Okay, let's do it.
It helps me get into the Celtic soul, So no, I'm a terrible singer actually, but I can belt a number. I can put a lot of energy into a song. So I won't definitely won't put you through my Sinead O'Connor impression.
Vitaly wants to listen to it.
Yeah.
You want to hear it?
Yeah. You want to hear it? Okay. We'll do it by the campfire tomorrow night. How's that?
Okay. Promise. Pinky promise.
Yes. Sure.
Good. Okay, we have another 2 minutes, but we can start if you like. I leave it up to you.
Yeah.
Shall we wait another 2 minutes, or shall we start?
I think if
No, we need to wait.
People will come and go.
Yeah, we need to wait just a couple more minutes. So
good.
we'll wait. So
yeah.
let me stall by asking some questions. So first of all, Dana Maria, who are you?
Yes. I'm Dana Maria. I'm from the Netherlands, and I've been a sailor for 10 years, first as a mate and later as a captain. And now I make people captains of their lives. And virtual reality is the most powerful tool to help me with my mission. That's why my company is called Captain VR.
I love it.
I love it too.
So what also
you.
is important to know is that you are also in charge of the coaching and personal development track here at this conference. And so big round of applause for helping us bring some of the most amazing speakers and topics and helping to change this entire conversation. I totally love it. And then, and you have a great event that's just coming up pretty soon. You want to do a quick plug of that?
Yes, of course. Tomorrow, in the late afternoon or evening for me, it's 10 o'clock CET. That's Amsterdam time, but it's
noon
I don't
Pacific,
know.
I believe. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think noon Pacific, exactly. We give a presentation, me and Josh. We together join the stage, and he's talking about video-based therapy and using virtual reality for that. And I'm talking about how we connect virtual and real worlds to help people, empower people. So please come and see us. It is a live event and a virtual event. And the live part is going to be held in California at the Art Gallery. And this is all, they also empower people with art and video and all sorts of beautiful, empowering things to make the world a better place. So please come and join us tomorrow.
That's going to be
definitely
amazing.
will. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, please.
And then while we just vamp for just another minute as people are coming in and finding a way to the virtual seats, Camille?
Yes.
Tell me, what is it, or tell us, what is it that truly sparked your passion for virtual and spatial technologies? What was that?
Sure.
That little
spark? I'm going to be covering it in my talk because it was 5 years ago. No, but I'm happy to give you a quick summary. But the first experience I ever tried was an art installation, and it was an embodiment piece. So I was inside the body of this guy in this situation. And that was it for me. I mean, this was like, it was like I was back acting. I was embodying this character, and I could feel what he was feeling through nonverbal communication. And so that was it. I ran out of the conference and rang out everyone I knew going, this is it. This is the medium through which we can help to shift perspectives and see from other people's points of view. Yeah, I got it.
I love it.
Straight away. You know.
All right, Dana Maria, Camille, it's all yours. Go for it.
Wait, Laurel, you just have to do yourself first a little bit. Just 1
Laurel,
minute.
Tell us more about your amazing story.
That's all right. Go for it.
Okay. Well, everything I've heard about you is super inspiring, Laurel. So I look forward to meeting you later. Thanks for this opportunity.
Laurel is the co-founder of Educators in VR. For the people who didn't know that yet, this amazing event is inspired by Laurel. Thank you, Laurel. So good.
Thank you so much.
All right, definitely.
Okay, so we're gonna have this presentation for Camille Donegan, and she's an award-winning virtual reality producer, speaker, and curator. Do I say that right? Curator? Yeah. Curator.
Curator.
Also thank you. Also a general manager and a producer at Virtual Reality Ireland, and founding member of Eirmersive. She's going to talk about the power of virtual embodiment for training. So give a big hand to Camille Donegan.
Great. Thank you so much, Dana Marie. Hi, everyone. This is amazing. This is my first Alt Space talk, so I am so excited to be here. And I can't actually believe that I'm in my bedroom, like in a tracksuit. Having come from an acting background, I'm used to looking, having hair perfect and having makeup perfect. So it's so liberating and freeing to just be able to share my passion without worrying about those really not very important elements, to be honest. So I love my avatar, and I just made her today and gave her a new outfit. So it's really cool. So first slide, please, Dana Maria.
Yes.
Great. So how I came into all of this was maybe somewhat unusual, my background. So I wanted to be an actor. My dad said, no way, forget about it. He said, go and get a real qualification, a real job, and then maybe you can think about becoming an actor. So I liked computer games. So I went, okay, I'm going to go and study computer science. And then when I started working in the really boring bank, making software, working with like VB.net and C#, I had money and I had time. So basically for 13 years, I was a programmer by day and an actor by night. So they were two like completely different worlds. But really looking back, it was such a yin-yang life. One of those enabled me to have money and to have comfort, and the other enabled me to have expression of freedom and to really have that kind of journey to discover who I was and to have that freedom. So I'm very fortunate to have parallel careers in technology and the arts for over 13 years. Next slide, please. And then 5 years ago, I walked into the Science Gallery in Dublin and there was this art installation. Actually, it was a film and technology conference. And I had always kind of felt a little bit out of touch in terms of, when I was working in IT, I always felt like the outsider. And when I was working with people in the arts, I also felt like the outsider. So, I was the only actor that had a house and a car. And I think I was like the only person working in the bank who was on stage most nights, But I walked into this conference, a film and technology conference called Digital Biscuit 5 years ago. And there is all these people there that kind of looked like me. They were kind of wearing clothes a bit like me, and I really felt like I just found my tribe, which was this intersection of film and technology. And at this conference, there was this physical dinner table, like you see in the slides here. And it was set up with chairs and placemats and glasses and cutlery and all of these elements. And then on each placemat, there was this black device, a headset, which I found out later was an Oculus DK1. Remember, this is just December 2015, right? So I was so excited to find out more, and I talked to Mads Dambo, the creator from Denmark, for at least 30 minutes before I tried anything. And I said, oh, tell me, what is this? So he explained to me that this was a virtual reality experience. It was an embodiment experience, so you would go into the perspective of a particular character at this awkward family dinner setting. Interestingly, he chose the awkward family dinner scenario so that we would, most viewers would have context for that from their own lives that they would bring to the scenario, which is really interesting. So that's working on this idea of the mental models that we all have and we bring into the world. So if you link in with that, you can get even more power from the work. So in Doghouse, there was 5 possible characters that you could choose. The husband, the wife, the son, the son's girlfriend, or the little boy. So Mads asked me, which character do you want to be? And I was like, this is unbelievable. Like, this is such an interesting place to be, that it's like art and it's tech, and I'm going to like put on this headset now and be in this perspective. So I kid you not, the moment I put on the headset, boom, I was transported. I'm in this guy's body, I'm looking up and down, left and right, and I feel like I'm there and I'm in this person embodying his perspective. So much so that through nonverbal communication, so the piece was in Danish and it had subtitles, but they were very blurry. The 360 cameras back then were not great, and the resolution was pretty awful, but the audio was amazing. The spatial audio made me feel so immersed, and really the visuals were just kind of supporting the power that the audio was creating to immerse me into that situation. So I knew that this character was annoyed at his wife. And I knew that because every time she took like another big glug of wine, he sighed. My character sighed like, and I was in that sigh. I could feel it. I'm like, he's so annoyed at his wife. And that was it. I was like, this incredibly powerful as a medium. So I ran out of the conference, I rang my best friend, Dr. Salim Mullins, who has a training company, and we were often talking about how we could help people in organizations in particular see from other people's perspectives. And as actors, we'd always had that ability, and we'd worked a lot with role play for training, which is very, very impactful, but it's not very scalable. Next slide, please, Dan and Maria. So I spoke to all these people about the power of this, and then I started to do a lot of research. So I'm like, what is happening here? What's happening at a neurological level? Because something else that was really interesting about that first hit that I had, Doghouse, was in the scenario, there was a roast beef dinner that came and was at the table, and everybody's eating it, like the characters are eating it, and I could smell it. And afterwards, I said to Mads Dambo, I said, you sprayed something, right? You sprayed some smell of like roast beef. He's like, no, that's your brain adding that in because it thinks it should be there. So I was even more mind blown by that comment. So I went out researching, did a lot of looking at what Stanford had been doing for many years at Mel Slater's lab in the Human Interaction Lab. And so, as some of you might already know, and obviously there's a lot of research still ongoing in this regard, but it seems like our brains believe that virtual reality is real because of the spatial nature and the 3D-ness of the environment. So our brain is going, okay, this is a 360 environment and it's got depth and it's got 3D-ness. Hey, the only other dimension we have that in is real reality. So maybe this is real. And so that's kind of our starting point for this kind of work. And if we're starting there, then if we work with all the elements we know that can bring people deeper and deeper into immersion, we've got a lot of power at our fingertips. Of course, we have to be careful with that power. And it's something that's very important to me is the VR for Good movement and being an ethical creator. And we're going to talk more about false memories in a little bit. Next slide, please. So let's see if I can read this. Easier for me to read it this way. So I love some of these quotes that come from Mel Slater in his lab. So the embodied simulation, it seems to slip beneath the cognitive threshold, affecting the associative unconscious parts of the mind. It's directly experiential. It's not I know, it's I am. So for me, that kind of sums up this whole power of virtual embodiment and the potential of it. And we know that the parts of our brain that are lighting up when we're in a virtual reality experience are the parts associated with doing the activity, right? So I'm an experiential learner, kinesthetic learner, very visual person. So this medium is like rocket fuel to me. It feels really intuitive. I feel so at home in this medium. And I think a lot of it is relating to what Mel is saying here. Next slide, please. I want to tell you about another very impactful piece of work that has inspired me, and I think it might inspire you. If you're able to raise your hand if you've seen The Machine to Be Another, if you've been in the experience. Oh, it's one person, brilliant, a couple of people, brilliant. So The Machine to Be Another is a really, really interesting piece of work. And in it, and again, I tried it in the Science Gallery in Dublin, so you go into this booth with somebody. So two people go into the experience, you put on an Oculus Rift, your partner that you've gone in with puts on an Oculus Rift, and there's cameras at the front. And you are separated from each other physically by a curtain, and you look down, once the camera kind of comes to life and everything, you look down and you see the other person's body as if it was your own, okay? So that's the idea. And then to bring you deeper into the immersion, you have a facilitator paired with each person, and they bring you through a series of exercises to deepen that embodiment sensation further and further. And I can't tell you how profound this was for me. So the first time I went into it, I went in with my boyfriend, and we hadn't been dating that long, maybe a few months. And so in the exercises, you do a lot of touch. Again, it's all nonverbal, which for me is very powerful. Words only tell us a little part of the picture. So we did these. I wish I could show you the movements. But basically, we stroked our own arm, and it was synchronized. So the facilitators are guiding you through the movement at the same time. So as close as possible, I'm stroking my left arm and then my right arm at the same time as my boyfriend. So I'm looking down and I'm having moments where I'm flicking between the realization that this is not my body and then my proprioception sense telling me, this is you, this is not you. And I could literally feel this kind of flip-flop of activity within my brain where like I could feel my brain being filled for a moment and I'd kind of slip under that cognitive threshold that Mel Slater talks about. And then at other times I was above it and I knew who I was and where I was. It was incredibly powerful. And I came back a few weeks later to the same experience. It was on for a couple of months in the Science Gallery, and I went in with my good friend Sabina, who was 9 months pregnant at the time. And I thought, oh, this is going to be really weird. I'm going to be super freaked out because I've actually never wanted to have my own children. And actually, it just felt normal. I looked down, I saw prey, I'm like, okay, I'm pregnant now. And again, I had that same sensation where I was kind of in and out of this very deep, immersive, embodied experience. So I wanted to share that with you. And if you get a chance to check out and try The Machine to Be Another, I recommend it. They also have paired somebody in a wheelchair with a dancer, and that the person in a wheelchair was able to feel that they were dancing. How wonderful is that? And there's been a lot of kind of unusual pairings of that nature to bring people into experiences and into bodies and perspectives that they could never normally have in real life. So it just shows you the power of this medium. Next slide, please, Dana Maria. So again, I have to look up here, sorry. So what, in summary, or some points that I'd like to highlight about virtual embodiment is that we have the ability to convince people that they are someone else or indeed their avatar. So we're going to have a conversation after my talk, and I'd love you to share your thoughts even around how embodied you feel in your alt-space avatar, for example. We know that we're able to manipulate mental models both internally and externally. So we all have a conditioned self. We see the world in a fixed perspective because of everything that's happened to us up to this point in our life. However, they can be shifted in a very powerful way through virtual reality and some of the scenario-based experiences I'm going to share with you that I'm producing. Interestingly, and this is kind of an aside, people who work a lot with their bodies find it very hard to suspend disbelief and to really let themselves go into an embodied experience. I just find that really interesting. So it's like they're too tied or attached to their physical body and they can't go there. They can't make that leap of faith to go, I'm someone else, I'm somewhere else, I'm in this body or this avatar, which is fascinating. And inhabiting a new virtual body can produce meaningful psychological shifts. So, we're only scratching the surface of these possibilities, but the work of Mel Slater, and I'm kind of piggybacking on his expertise and lots of other creators working with kind of in my shoes type experiences, we're all looking to see how we can help people. At least that's my driver. And then the therapeutic and educational use that comes from the possibilities that this presents. Next slide, please. So another quote. There's a brilliant article, and if you're interested in this topic, I highly recommend you check it out. If you just Google virtual embodiment New Yorker. So there was this article in the New Yorker about 3 years ago, maybe, I think it was 2017, and follows this guy, Thomas Mertzinger, who goes to Mel Slater's lab and goes and tries lots of different embodiment experiences and meditation, virtual meditation experiences, and he explored this topic at length in that New Yorker article. One of the quotes I like is, he says, embodied virtual experience can change us profoundly. It can affect us in ways we barely understand, redefining the very relation we have to our own minds. So isn't that so wonderful? I'm sure I'm not the only one in this room who has some limiting beliefs or things that are holding them back. And if we have ways through virtual reality to step past that and to work through blocks that we might have, hence this being, I guess, a V coaching session. But if we are able to do that with virtual reality and to do it ourselves, I'm doing it to help others, but I'm very interested into how I can help myself with these tools as well and become my best self. Next slide, please, Dana Maria. So I'm sure most of you know about the amazing work that, well, the UN and Chris Milk and others have done as regards humanitarian 360 video, primarily films. So in 2015, Clouds Over Sidra was made, where you get to follow the perspective of a 14-year-old Syrian refugee girl. We've recently worked with some refugees in Iraq, creating a similar story, and really just them showing their lives to people, and it is being used as a fundraising tool. So we know that this kind of walk in my shoes experience is empathy building, and there's been a lot of concern about the term of like VR being the empathy making machine, which was a phrase that Chris Milk coined. Personally, I don't have a problem with it. I absolutely believe that virtual reality does have the possibility and the ability to be an empathy building machine. It just depends on what's on it. It depends what the content is. It depends on the ethics and values of the creators who made it, and it depends on that journey you're brought in. An interesting thing about the work we've been doing through the charity in Dublin, we basically made a GoPro Fusion and a few headsets to bring over. They're starting an educational program for kids in this camp in Iraq. And we gave the team, the charity team, a 360 camera to film some footage. What we didn't realize is what they would actually do is train up one of the guys who lives in the camp to use the camera and just give it to him and see what happens. So he sets up the camera in his tent, and it's the most wonderful footage that you could never, ever plan. So I don't know what he said. You know, I probably would have said, like, you know, if you're setting up a shot, tell people to look at the camera as if it's a person or something like that. Maybe he did say that to them, but that's exactly what happens. This guy in this camp in Iraq has the GoPro Fusion camera in the middle of his tent, and time goes by. It's like about 30 minutes. We cut it down to about 2 really engaging minutes, where there's like one moment where the little girl comes up and she looks at the camera like, hey, you, like, I see you, I'm going to do a dance for you. And then she does this little dance, and the grandfather's kind of like looking suspicious at the camera for ages. And then eventually he gets up and he kind of sidles over to the camera and he looks right into the lens and he kind of smiles and he nods a bit like a cowboy. And you're like, this changes everything. If I had gone into that tent and filmed that guy's family, you know, is that voyeuristic? Like what kind of energy is behind that shoot or that creation of that piece? Whereas this family have invited me in and through the footage that was captured. So it's a really interesting conversation. And I've been running a meetup for quite a while, and early on, probably back in 2015, we had a conversation evening where we talked about empathy versus sympathy. And we were particularly looking at the Paris Vigils footage that was there at the time. And, you know, back in 2015, 2016, we weren't as nuanced about things like personal space. So in that Paris Vigils film, you're right next to the people who are mourning, and it's just too close, you know. But there's so many ways to tell the story, but keeping the empathy idea in mind, I think providing the creators are making it from the right place, it can absolutely build empathy in a really strong and powerful and positive way without taking advantage of the people that you're filming. Next slide, please, Dana Maria. So I'd say a lot of you know this next piece, the Walk Again project. I didn't work on this. I'm going to come to my work now shortly, which in comparison to these super inspiring projects, but we're all starting somewhere. But this Walk Again project So for those of you who may not know about it, is essentially people who are paraplegics are using virtual reality simulations, and with gaze triggers, they're controlling the legs of the avatar in the viewer experience. And then they it's kind of unbelievable what's happening, but from a neurological perspective, it's tying in with the whole notion of mirror neurons and brain elasticity, which are, you know, only concepts we've discovered in the last kind of 10 or 15 years. But basically, the synapses are starting to reform in the brain, and it's starting to reconnect because the brain thinks that they're walking. So it's not like these people miraculously start walking again. It's not like that. But over time, they've got so much more connectivity happening in their brain that 80% of people who've been through this program have regained bladder control, which is huge development for paraplegic people. So I just wanted to highlight that project. Next slide, please, Bella Maria. So what am I doing? I did this talk or a variation of it a while ago, and I'm talking about all these like amazing world-changing pieces. Then I'm like, and we're helping call center agents to be better call center agents, and everyone laughed. I was like, yeah. In comparison to like saving the world, it seems like a bit smaller, but it's still valuable, I think. And really, for me, to be totally honest, I don't think there's anybody from FBD Insurance, which is the company in Ireland that supported this as a training piece. I really wanted to try this concept for quite a while, and I was just really lucky that we had a champion who was an existing client in FBD Insurance, and he's like, sure, let's try it, let's see what happens. So what we did with FBD Insurance is we captured, so this is Regina Heffernan, so the photo at the top left. So Regina Heffernan's been working in this insurance company for like 12 years. She loves it. She loves being on the phone every day. She's super charismatic. She has like great banter with the customers, but she's also really good at her job. She says all the sales script elements the way she needs to. She sticks with the compliance, and she, in this call that we captured, it's 16 minutes. Sorry, Denver's just saying that the sound is a bit off. Can you guys hear me okay? Maybe you can send me some little hearts if you can all hear me okay. And I'll keep my projection that I know from my acting going. Okay, I think most people can hear me okay. I'll keep going. This is actually like my second last slide. So Regina Heffernan was captured in full 360. We used a special rig that we built ourselves, which is two 180 cameras, one at the front and one at the back of her head. And the idea is that a new trainee coming into the insurance company who's doing their training in the regular training room environment with traditional teaching methods, as part of their training, they put on the headset and they get transported up to the sales room floor, the call center floor, and into the body of the expert. Regina Heffernan, who's like done this for years and does it really, really well. So we have called this concept Embody the Expert. And what's amazing is like we wanted to try it out of interest and kind of to study the psychological effects and all of this. But the business impact of this has been huge. They actually reported a 600% return on investment, because this has completely replaced the need for the shadowing process, which was always very resource intensive. So previously, a new trainee would have to spend a little bit of time on the call center floor, sitting with somebody who knows what they're doing and all of that. So plus this is consistent, it's scalable, it's repeating the desired behavior for that particular role. So that was the work we did with FBD Insurance, and it won an award, the Irish Institute of Training and Development. It won the Excellence in Digital Learning Award last year. And they use it on a daily basis, so it's just a really useful use case. Then we brought the scenario into a hospital that we've been working with. So the same concept. So I've been meeting with part of St. James's Hospital in Dublin called the Mercer Institute for Successful Aging. So these are older patients, and their ethos is very inspiring, and it's all about using creative arts to help empower older people to basically be the captain of their own lives, Dana Maria, and also to heal and to hopefully get out of hospital quite soon. But creative arts is integral to what they do. They have a choir and lots of activities like that. So at MISA, we had so many possibilities of what we could use virtual reality for. They knew that I was obsessed with the idea of embodiment and scenarios that we could bring to life. So long story short, we ran a hackathon with the staff at the hospital, and one team won the hackathon, and we worked with them for 3 or 4 months of development to design and co-create and co-script and co-produce the scenario, which is the one that you see in the cafe. And basically the scenario is it's 4 older patients who've been in the hospital a long time and are preparing to discharge, and they're quite afraid of leaving. They've become quite institutionalized. They're not mad on the idea of what it's going to be like when they leave. So the staff at the hospital, the occupational therapists, interviewed the patients and asked them, what are you most nervous about? What are you scared about in terms of leaving and going home? And they said quite normal day-to-day activities, like I'm nervous about getting on public transport, I'm nervous about opening my front door, going to the post office, I'm nervous about being in a busy cafe, having to deal with money. So we took that scenario, the cafe scenario, and we brought it to life with the same rig. So the first person perspective embodied experience. As I said, filmed with 2 180 cameras. We had to be quite careful this time because the lady who had cameras very tight to her front and back of her head was in her 80s, so we had to be very careful that we didn't disrupt her or make her uncomfortable. So in the scenario, you embody the body of Mary, and Mary is a character in her 80s, and she's recently been discharged from hospital, and she's quite anxious. And what I loved about the scenarios, for the first time, we were able to bring the notion and the concept of hearing the character's thoughts. So we hear Mary's thoughts as if they are our own. And we hear that Mary's nervous. She's not sure if she's in the right cafe to meet her daughter. She's not sure if she has time for tea and coffee. All of this, and she's wondering why the staff are always on the phone and not looking at her. So as we go through the scenario, and there's a big dramatic moment when she's ordered the food and the coffees and everything, and she realizes she doesn't have enough money to pay for what she's ordered. And you hear, we also have the heartbeat that runs throughout the piece, and when it gets to that moment, for example, the heart rate is quite increased, and I just like that, as a producer, I love elements like that just bring us more and more into the human side of the scenario. But then she overcomes the dramatic moments, and the waitress talks her through how to tap her card and pay that way instead. And so it ends on a really strong, confident building note. When her daughter comes into the cafe, she's like, "Mom, I can't believe it. How did this happen? How did you do all of this?" Because she's used to her mum for the last few months being in hospital and being weak. And now she's strong, and she's been able to order all of these things, and she's empowered herself in this situation. So the idea for this scenario, and it's being trialed at the moment, is to empower people before they leave the hospital. And that's going well. People are feeling a benefit from it. So it's just been trialed with about 20 people so far. There's also been an interesting byproduct where some people say, "Oh, I'm not as bad as Mary. Mary's very anxious. I'm actually not as anxious as her," which I would have thought would have been negative feedback as a producer. But the psychologist at the hospital said, "No, that's brilliant, because that's making them feel strong." Yeah. So that's an interesting kind of byproduct. And our plan for our work at MISA is to build out lots and lots of these scenarios. So we're going for funding together, and we're hoping to build many scenarios so that, depending on what the therapists or the staff in the hospital need, they can use a particular scenario to help a patient. So quite personalised is where we'd like to get to, but we need to get health funding for that, which is probably not going to come from Ireland, so we'll need to find international funding for that. I don't know if I have any more slides. Donna Maria, just the next slide. I think it's just, yeah, and the next one actually, it's just my contact details so people can keep in touch with me. So I'd love to open it up to a conversation now, if that works from a technical perspective, and if people are interested in talking a bit more on this topic of virtual embodiment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So how do we do this, Donna Marie? Do we ask people to raise their hand and then you're able to unmute them, or
yeah,
what are the practicalities of that?
Yeah, that would be best, that to raise their hands and then you can talk to them. I unmuted everybody, so now everybody can talk, but maybe I mute everybody again if I hear too many background noises. But start with raising your hand when you have a question. Thanks.
Okay. You'd like to say something about virtual embodiment? Come on, you can do it.
Yeah, there's one. That's Raven.
Yes.
Raven, you are not muted, I think. Are you muted? Did you mute yourself?
Can you hear me
Can
now?
you talk?
Yes. Yeah, can hear you now.
Hi.
Hi.
Camille, do you have a website or someplace where we can follow your work and see how this project is progressing?
Yeah, sure. Twitter so I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter would be the main social media channels that I use. So Camille Donegan or Camille, Camille.com actually on Twitter. So I'm general manager and producer at Virtual Reality Ireland, as Donna Maria mentioned earlier. So vor.ie is the website where we have case studies of recent work. But yeah, if you follow my channels, you'll see what's happening. And I hope to keep coming into alt space and hanging out with you guys, so we can also keep in touch that way. It's way more conversational than just social media following, right?
And you can meet up each other after in the VIP room, or you can bring them to talk after.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Is there any, question here from Christy.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing. At our school, the University of North Carolina School of Medicine, we're also working in perspective taking virtual reality.
Yeah.
So a project we're working on right now is actually to be, our users will be in the patient's perspective going through the trauma resuscitation. And we plan to film this weekend. I saw your rig for the camera, the front of the head and the back of the head. That's really cool, interesting rig. I was wondering if the stitching process was difficult or if that was...
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I guess straight off, I'm glad personally to hear that you're using film. So, a lot of people talk about embodiment, but then they're looking at environments that might be more like this. For me, if we're talking about some sort of confidence building or soft skills training, for me, my preference is film and video. Sure, we have challenges around interactivity. We rigged the first camera to the front of the forehead, and then the second one to the back. And actually then through the GoPro Fusion stitching software, we were able to take the front lens content from the two feeds and stitch them together. I won't say it was like the easiest thing in the world, but we mainly use Mystica for the stitching. So we'll do a quick stitch through the built-in GoPro stitcher. And then we'll go into Mystica to get a final result. But if you do need to test, so the distance between the two lenses needs to be tested, but we have been able to do it with a person's head in the middle, so it's definitely possible. So yeah, I recommend checking it out. Let me know how you get on.
Yeah, I muted you, but you can talk again. I just muted because someone had background noise, but everybody can talk again. So questions?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing about that. A quick follow-up question. So we also agree using the 360 video is going to be really powerful because you'll actually see a real human face. And so, for instance, when a provider speaks to you in the patient's point of view, you're seeing true facial expressions and seeing what it's like to be in that role. We actually do plan to add in interactions, though. And I was curious if you've added interactions to your experiences at all, such as hotspots or branching narrative and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I haven't yet, but I've been trying to sell a concept that is a really interesting way of achieving branching narrative, which doesn't break the immersion. And full credit to Courtney Harding at Friends with Holograms in New York, because I met her at South by Southwest last year. She showed me a piece that she did for Accenture, and I was like, oh my God, how you do interactivity with video, right? And how she did it was, she presented, so from a technical perspective, it's a little bit tricky because you have to do things with like video looping and stuff. But the concept was that it's all through voice, and she was using IBM Watson and some kind of add-ons or plugins related to IBM Watson for the natural language side of things. And basically, what would happen was part of the video would play. And then it would pause, but very nicely they would loop like the last kind of micro movement of the character, so it doesn't feel like the video was paused.
Right.
And so there's a kind of a reverse loop trick that you can do with that from videos. And then you would be presented with these, say, 4 or 5 slightly different semantic options on your virtual table. And then you would say it out loud. So the scenario from that piece was a social worker was going into this trailer to decide whether this daughter was being neglected by her birth mother. It had been reported by the ex-husband, or, was she in danger? This kid had asthma, and should there'd been an incident the previous Saturday. So, for instance, one of the 4 selections on the table might have been, what happened at the party last Saturday? Oh, I heard something happened at the party last Saturday. Tell me more about that, and so on and so forth. So the nuances the question would be asked would make a difference, branching choice for that character. And so then IBM Watson would pick up your response, and it knew which path to choose for the branching narrative. And I just cannot wait to try that. It's going to be a bit more expensive than the passive 360 video. Personally, I'm not mad on the idea of the hotspots, which is probably why I haven't done it yet, within one of these kind of soft skill scenarios. And also because a lot of the viewers we're working with, they're first timers. So I am quite a believer in start where your audience are at. So if you're working with regular kind of Joe soaps that are working in office who've had very little, perhaps no context of virtual reality before, it's okay to give them a passive experience and kind of warm them up. This is about a use case. And so, yeah, we all want to use the Quest and all that, but maybe some people are fine with using the Go, and that might be perfectly acceptable depending on the use case. But yeah, I'm super excited to be using voice for interaction, and that's what I would recommend if you guys have the development team to be able to kind of pull off the voice recognition and the computer generated elements of the table. What the words onto. Yeah.
Wonderful. I'm just stepping in to help with the questions. If anyone has a question, if you hit the raise hand button in your lower right corner, then we can bring you up and amplify your voice so that your question will be heard.
More questions, please.
Anyone else have a question? Hit that raise hand button down below.
Yeah. Talk about, I encourage you to maybe talk on what I mentioned earlier, which can even be, how do you feel in your pulse avatar? Do you feel embodied? Is what I said yesterday. My avatar was very similar to this person in the middle, this robot. And I really like that because I like the idea of fantasy, and again, I want to feel more. Then I realized to engage with you guys, this is, makes more sense to be human on the stage. presenting. So here I am, human avatar form. Does this feel like me? I said to Maria earlier, I was upset there was no dresses in the selection for what your avatar wears. I'm a dress girl. I'm small. And I want to wear dresses. We never wear pants, like never. So I won't wear dresses and all stuff. So anyway, it's on your connection to the avatar that you're embodying right now. You can kind of say that. Perhaps.
Anyone want to discuss that? Just hit that raise hand button. While we're waiting for people to raise their hand, when Altspace had a great deal of upheaval last year when avatars were taken away and downgraded, and we had many, many meetings and discussions to really explore what that meant. And it was quite upsetting to a lot of people. I didn't have any attachment one with the other, but it was fascinating to have people really say, I'm going to leave if I don't look like my avatar, if I don't this, if I don't that, if I this. And then other people were, and it was really an amazing lesson on what these avatars mean. And right now we currently still have placeholder avatars. Yeah. And so we are having better ones coming. And so we're still waiting on that because of the conversion for Oculus stores. So it just takes a long time to bring that in. So, yeah.
Great for me.
Yeah, but I'm here. So Vardis, we have Vardis has a question too. Vardis 2.
Hi. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi.
Okay, well, I'm new to all this, but I was wondering, earlier you mentioned that you seem to flip-flop between like believing that you're actually in it or being aware that you're not in it. And it seems like you've been able to like feel every sense except for taste. Could it ever be that you like are completely unaware, that you don't flip-flop anymore, like a dream? Like, how do you get the last sense of taste? Do you think that's ever going to be possible?
Yeah, and then there's a lot of research around taste, and it depends on the person. This is what I found really, when I started studying kind of this arena and sensory perception, I found it so bizarre that there's no baseline for senses. I couldn't believe that I can't go to be a hospital or a academic institution, but my senses in relation to a baseline from the rest of the populace, right? So I'd like to know, okay, I'm going to get a hearing test, and there's some science I have obviously in my eyes, but everything else, especially touch is really important sensation for me.
Yeah.
And it's not the case for others. And then smell is something for memory, right? The olfactory part of our brain, our memory section, which is also interesting, right? So, taste, again, I think it kind of comes back to what I said earlier, is your brain is immersed in all other senses.
Camille, we're having some audio problems with you, and I've just checked in other people. If you could hit the circle with a triangle, I know we're almost to the edge, but if you can hit the circle with a triangle, go to general and re-enter. We're having trouble with your audio. Sorry.
Okay.
I am so sorry.
No, how do I do that? Re-enter?
So you'd hit the circle, go to settings, and then you'll see re-enter there. No, okay. Usually it is, but in this case, there's a lot going on with this conference. And again, while she's coming back, I want to, because it'll take a second, I want to thank everyone for being here and for the patience with the technical issues and stuff. And Dana Maria, absolutely fantastic. I'm so glad you're on board with all of this. Well, thank you, and remind you all that we are doing a selfie competition. So please take a selfie of yourself in the real world with your VR kit to show people. There, you sound much better.
Oh,
to show,
sorry. Oh,
that's all right. Now to share what your VR experience is in the real world, and share that out on Twitter with our summit hashtags. And please let people know, what's going on. So now we have an. Did you want to answer that last question from Vardis?
Oh, yeah, just to restate it. Okay. To finish. Yeah, what I was saying. I guess there's a lot of other research that I've been doing is for location-based entertainment for a particular client. And so I've been looking at all these simulators that exist where you're like kind of moving all around. And, for me, it breaks the immersion completely. I would much rather a really good video and auditory experience, which if it's good enough and if it's tricking my brain enough, my brain will start to add in those other senses, potentially even, you know, smell and taste. So I'm kind of reticent to be pouring more adjectives into the equation just yet. And I don't think they're going to be subtle enough and believable enough to not detract from what they're trying to add to, if that makes sense. That's where I'm kind of at with that at the moment. But that will change even a year from now. I'm sure there's going to be some really cool smell and taste haptics we can employ. Any more questions? Raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question. Anyone? Say first, Peter. Come on.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Raven.
Oh, there.
Go ahead, yeah.
Oh, no. John has raised his hand. Raven's not.
Okay.
Raven, if you have a question, please hit your raise hand button.
Okay, go ahead, John.
John,
yeah, hello, can you hear me?
There you go, yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you now, John.
What's going on over in China? Are they still developing, do they call it the assets, or has it stifled?
Oh, the sense. Yeah, no, I think that's paused. I've been following that for quite a while, but nothing, no updates since they did some crowdfunding. So I don't have any update on. Yeah, but it was such a good idea. I don't know if you know, it was this adapter that you would put onto your headset, and it could add in many different scents. And it was using essential oils, which is what we need to use when we're producing scents. Otherwise, we're going to make people quite sick. So, essential oils. So I don't know.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah. I tried to get in touch with them last year, and they did not respond to my emails. But then I heard like 1 month ago that they were really back into business, that they are, but I don't think they are Chinese. I think they're an American company, aren't they?
Yeah, I didn't think they were
butterfly.
Chinese either, I don't think. But it, yeah.
Aspects of it, like the coronavirus, they shut I'm from the UK, I'm from London. I've noticed when I go to my local catalogue store, they're always sold out, and it's been sold out since Christmas.
There's major so there's major supply constraints on everything coming from China, but that's heavily impacted the Oculus shipping situation.
Will that harm progress? Will that harm progress?
Well,
like if it's a new generation headset?
I think it's going to halt progress for lots of industries in lots of ways, but we all just have to be patient while we get through this crisis, because it's obviously
what about
very, very concerning health crisis.
Current system? What about with the current system with update, like the Oculus Quest? Will there be future updates on the actual headset, or is it just going to fizzle out because of this tragedy?
Yeah, sure. I know they're updating firmware all the time for the Go and the Quest. It feels like every time I put on either headset, which would be pretty much daily, there's another firmware update. So some of them are buggy and some of them are great. So that will continue. I've absolutely no doubt. Yeah. Good question, John. Thank you.
Right. Okay, we have another question here from Martin.
Yeah, Martin?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Excellent. Well, just following up from what John was saying about the sensory mask. I heard that they've actually cancelled it in certain countries due to the fact it's the same as vaping, seen as vaping.
Because of so it can't be done indoors.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if they pause progression until they can work a way around this, try and find some form of loophole. But because I was really interested in that, because running through a field in a game like Skyrim or something, and you get this whiff of grass or field or whatever, it'd be fantastic. But then when you do see it as you're kind of inhaling all these what could be deemed as toxic fumes in there. I can see where they're coming, because they're still not 100% testing down on what vaping does to your system. So I don't know if we can really
distribute that yet. I do know a woman in California, and her expertise is smell for VRs. So if anyone wants to follow up with me after, I can kind of introduce you to her, and she'll definitely know what the current state of affairs looks like. It was like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't remember the guy's name now, but this guy created a box where you could go through several different videos, and it was you were completely in this like telephone box, and it would play video all around you. And this is in the 1950s, like, and he had smells, he had wind, he had all these extra sensory elements. So isn't it crazy? You know, we're in 2020 and we're trying to recreate something that was thought of in the 50s. Really. So check out Sensorama if you don't know about it. It's really interesting.
Will do.
All right, any last chance for questions?
Any other questions?
Just hit the raise hand button down in your lower right corner of your screen. Yeah, one of the problems, you know, while we're talking about embodiment and presence, raising your hand in a VR unit from in a stage, we can't see you. So, all right, so if you had a question, please hit the raise hand button.
Yeah, I think John is trying to raise his hand there, are you?
Well, me, yeah. Will VR go the way
Hold on.
of 3D?
Sorry. That's all right. I just want to make sure you're on megaphone so everybody can hear you.
Okay,
okay,
VR,
I think you are. Yep.
Yeah, will VR stick it out more than like, when 3D came out in 2011 or 2009?
3D
that's like fizzled out. I hope VR will carry on with its progress apart.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think everyone's talked about that kind of argument against virtual reality adoption since I've been involved, since 2015. And personally, there's in my mind, there's no correlation whatsoever. And where we're at and where we will be at for the next few years is where virtual reality adds value. So what are the case studies? What are the use cases? And then when you get into deeper metrics, for organizational stuff, what's the return on investment? You know, how effective is this? How engaging is it? You know, there's just so many powerful use cases, and I can feel the adoption happening, and that's cross sector because I work in every sector, and I can feel that it's a slow burner. It's definitely slow. There's a lot of reluctance to the adoption, for a multitude of reasons, but it's growing all the time. So I have no concerns that this is going to be dead in the water in like 2 or 3 years. Raise your hand if you believe me. VR is gonna stick around this time. We're not in the 80s anymore. We can make it. Thank you for coming. Please keep in touch. And I'm going to be hanging out in Old Space. I'll be coming to the rest of the conference for sure. And if you have any more questions, please just don't hesitate to reach out and also add me as a friend. And thank you so much, Dan, Maria, and Loretta, for everything and for all your hard work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, give a big hand to Camille Donegan.
Thank you so much. I love the hand. Thank you.
I love you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So coming up next is in Engage. We have and hopefully everything is going to go great. I think he's already in there all prepped. Tom Furness is back to do a awesome panel with some